It is my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of Cyber Protection Solutions for Raytheon Intelligence and Space, the one and only Mr. Jon Check. Mr. Jon Check, how you doing today?
Great, Nor. Thank you. I'm so delighted to be
in.
here. I cannot wait to get on the discussion with the athletes from season one.
Well, we're very excited to have you. So if you could just give us a little bit of background about yourself, a little bit introduce yourself to the new viewers out there as well.
Sure. So my name is Jon Check, C-H-E-C-K, no fancy letters like Z's, Q's, or E's in there. I lead Raytheon Cyber Protection Solutions, which is focused 100% on cyber defense. My customers are government, state and local, and international. So really cover the gambit of anybody that needs cyber defending. That's really my focus in doing so. One of the key aspects of my job that makes me really excited to be a part of the U.S. Cyber Games is building that talent pipeline and ensuring that that talent has real world scenarios that really helps build their skills and really get those practical experiences. That's one of the critical aspects. I'm sure everybody's heard, we have a little bit of a talent problem in cyber. There's not enough of us. And so really make sure that everybody is welcome in cyber and that we really have events like this, the U.S. Cyber Games, to ensure that we're building that talent and they're getting the skills and the experiences they need.
I love that. I love that. Now, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. You said that, we're looking for more talent in cyber. What have you seen out there that has been working? Have you seen any initiatives that we can help with that can actually bring more talent out there?
Well, I think, the number one thing for me, and I don't think you see it out there necessarily, but at the end of the day, when you have a cyber team with hands on keyboards, there's a whole group of individuals that help them get to that point of readiness, right? It's the people that are in part of procurement. It's the people that are part of recruiting, the people that are part of your continuing education or your training, legal, et cetera. So really my biggest push when it comes to trying to build that cyber workforce that we need is, if you're a cybersecurity professional that's hands on keyboard, invite one of your friends that's not cyber or is mystified by what you do on a day-to-day basis to join, because we need all people across all different disciplines to ensure that those people, that when they have their hands on the keyboards, they've got the support they need. So it's not just about being that cyber subject matter expert. It's also about really helping everyone in the defense, cybersecurity defense, and all the work that goes into it, kind of behind the scenes.
I like that. I like that. And now, when the U.S. Cyber Games came around, and by the way, mystified is absolutely the correct word. Mystified is definitely the correct word there. But when the U.S. Cyber Games came around, I see that you all did jump on. You became a sponsor. What do you see the U.S. Cyber Games future becoming? And also, you obviously were very excited to get involved. Where do you think that this can kind of lead career path-wise for the youth as well?
Well, I think, one of the key aspects of it, for one thing, cyber is a team sport. And so in participating in events like this, they're building their networks, not just here, but also with some of our international partners and building some of those relationships that I can guarantee you, some of the people that they worked with and part of this event that happened in Greece, they will come across those individuals again when they need specific help. That will absolutely happen. And so for me, it's about the career, about building that network, because that's one of the critical things when you recognize the fact that no matter how smart one individual is, you need a team, and that events like this really start building that international team that we need to help defend all nations against cyber attacks. Absolutely.
Well, I believe we're going to hand it over to you. We're going to talk a little bit about the highlights from the international cyber competition as well, the athletic perspective. So I will hand it over to you.
All right. I'm going to be joined by 5 of the team members from season 1 that participated in Greece. We'll wait till they all get on board here. Let's see. I see Austin, Rajat, Joshua, Chris, and Susie. So wait for them all to get on camera and we'll get rolling. All right. So I guess this, Nora, really starts the portion of, cyber competitors say the darndest thing. So with that in mind, I will start asking some questions and see where this takes us. So I'll start off with the first question for Joshua. Why did you want to be a member of the U.S. Cyber Team? This is the first initial season. What really brought you, piqued your interest about this?
Yeah, thanks, John. So I guess what really piqued my interest about the whole U.S. Cyber Team initiative is the fact that we're trying to bring together a lot of people from around the U.S., representative of, the cyber community that we have, and bring them together to compete in international competition. I thought that was a really interesting initiative, and I was excited to be a part of it.
So for a little bit of follow on, so Austin, what about your thoughts? Why did you want to be a member of the U.S. Cyber Team?
So I really like learning, and I felt like this would be a great way to do it. If I can be on a team with some of the best in the country at this age, I feel like that would really set me apart from everyone else. And I would say it really helped me just learn a ton about what I wanted to do.
All right, I see Susie nodding. So how about share your thoughts, the final thoughts on this question, Susie?
Yeah, I just thought that this was a completely, totally new experience and a totally unique opportunity. So when I saw it come up, I was like, wow, like when again in my life am I going to be able to do something this cool?
That's right. You can say you're part of the first.
I can
team.
say I'm a part of the first, exactly.
That's great. This looks like Raja's having a little bit of trouble with this video. We'll see he gets on here in a second. So really my next question would be, and I'll open this up, but I'll start with you, Chris. What would you share with others thinking about wanting to be invited to participate in the combine and then be drafted onto the team?
Sorry, my mic wasn't working. Can you repeat the question?
What would you share with others thinking about wanting to join requesting to participate in the combine and then join the cyber team for season 2?
I definitely think it's worth it no matter what. If you think it's going to be too much, it's not. It's a great experience. So I definitely think everyone should take a stab at it and just go out there and just do their best to get onto the team.
All right. Well, we'll try to get to Rajat, who's not on camera, see if the mic works. So Rajat, what's one of the pieces of advice you'd give some of those people that are want to participate in the combine? Well, maybe Rajat's having trouble with the mic. So I'll turn it over to you, Austin.
Yeah. So going back on your last point where it's what do people think trying to get to this competition, any advice? I initially wasn't actually going to do the Cyber Open. I didn't think I could make the team at all, but I had some great friends who were like kind of pushing me to do this Open, like compete. Like I skipped some work to do it. And I feel like if you don't think you can make the Cyber team, I would still try out for the Open, see how you do, see if you can make the combine, and just learn as much as you can from all the challenges.
Right. I think it's kind of like the competition itself, right? If first you don't make it this year, right, there's a window that with it you can maybe try again next year based on some lessons learned or some of the people you meet to get your combine skills to what they need to be able to join the team. Susie, anything else you'd like to add to that? Any other recommendations?
Yeah, like everybody said, just really try your best, put yourself out there because you might surprise yourself. And also, something that I learned throughout the combine experience is that you get out of it what you put in it. So if you're putting in your top effort, you're putting in your best work, something good is bound to happen as well.
That's right. I think that's good advice. It applies to pretty much everything, right? Get out of it what you put into it. 100% agree. All right. So I know this is a question Chris was really wanting to answer. So let's see what he has to say about this. So what's the one lesson you learned during the International Cybersecurity Challenge from someone on an opposing team and or an opposing team's strategy?
Yeah. So one thing I learned was after bashing my brain on a challenge for so long, believing that the challenge that they gave us was the same challenge that was running on the remote, I learned not to believe that. Team Europe didn't believe it as well, and they actually came up with a creative idea to determine what was wrong with it. And they ended up solving the challenge just by verifying each piece of their code to make sure that it was what they said it was. And then they found out the one piece that was wrong. And so I just didn't think to know that what they gave us was not what they're telling us. Right. And so, yeah.
Expect the unexpected, I guess, in the competition. So Susie, how about your thoughts? What is something that you learned from the opposing teams?
I'd say one of my top lessons also from Team Europe was just the value of having like really good team building and team bonding experiences. I think Team Europe really exemplified that because they were able to meet up in person, 5 or 6 times prior to the competition. And you could just see what, how important or how strong their teamwork was and how used to competing they were. So definitely learned that, for upcoming seasons, get together with your teammates, really try to build that strong connection with one another, get to know one another, learn each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I think that it'll really result in some, positive results in the competition.
All right, Nate, if you wouldn't mind, Suze, just expand on that a little bit more about the criticality of teamwork, not just in a competition, but also in cyber. I'd really like to hear, a couple more thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I've been on teams my whole life. And so I've always been able to recognize it, that everyone has different strengths and everyone has different weaknesses. And also, in addition to that, everyone has different communication styles. And so one thing that you really need to understand is how to communicate with one another in order to kind of improve the flow of your teamwork and improve, I guess, the how well everybody's working together. So this is totally an example, but for example, if Chris likes to, be yelled at and that motivates him and he likes it, like that's one way to communicate him. But if Chris would rather, be talked to calmly and you get explained things slowly, that's important to know too, because you want to have that good team dynamic between one another.
So what does Chris like?
Definitely not getting yelled at.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Let's go to you, Joshua. So what about your thoughts? What's one of the things you learned from some of the competitors?
Yeah, so a couple things that I took away. Like they mentioned, Team Europe really worked together well as a team. One of their definitely large strengths, obviously, is a team-based competition. But also just looking around at the way that other teams came together and tackled challenges in different ways. I thought it was really interesting how different teams from different parts of the world approach strategy differently. And while Team Europe came out on top, I think there's a lot of strengths that we can learn from how the other regions came together and tackled different challenges.
Excellent. All right, Austin, you're next. What are your thoughts?
What did I learn from other competitors?
Yes. Yep.
So I didn't get to spend as much time, or I didn't spend as much time talking to the competitors, sadly. There were a couple outings that we did get to see them and kind of talked about how they talked about how their proximity was nice and how they got to meet up. And that was really interesting to me, like Susie was saying, of how they got to like build that team coordination and stuff. And it was really cool. And I really hope that the US Cyber team can like implement that some way next year.
Okay. Excellent. I think those are all great advice. And when Rajat gets back on, he's rebooting his device, I think. So a technical difficulty. Once he gets back on, we'll make sure we get him in the conversation here. So I'm going to ask you, so, unfortunately, we're limited by time today, and we don't get to hear each of your cyber superhero origin stories, but we do have time to hear your superpowers. So I'd like to, I'm sure we'd be delighted to hear about what's your superpower and how does it make you an awesome cyber competitor? So I'll start with you, Susie.
Oh man, I got to go first. I'm just kidding. Two come to mind for me. The first one being organization. Not necessarily a cyber related skill, but definitely applicable. I'm very organized and able to see a big problem, split it up into small tasks and kind of sort things out that way. And I think that became really important in the cyber competition because there was a whole lot going on at once. A whole lot of people working on different challenges. Different teams were throwing different attacks and we were having to defend against them all at the same time. And so with my role on the team, a lot of it was kind of that organizational aspect of like keeping an eye on everything and knowing where to delegate kind of tasks and whatnot. So number one, organization, I would say. Number two is concentration. Since college, I've had this weird ability, like people would call me a walking Adderall pill, where I could just get on a task and focus on it. And 4 hours would go by and I'd be like, I forgot to drink water in the last 4 hours. Like I haven't moved, So that can be a good or bad thing, but definitely with the cyber competitions and CTF challenges, specifically, a lot of challenges involve a lot of steps. And it's easy to get lost if you kind of break that concentration. So definitely think that has helped me in CTF competitions as well.
That's great. I love those. All right, Chris, you're next. What are your superpower or powers and how do they help you be effective?
Sure. So I would say my superpowers are probably like my determination and perseverance. I just won't give up on a challenge, whether it's 14 hours of just one problem. I just won't stop. I won't eat either, but I just won't stop working on the challenge. So yeah, just being able to just stick to one thing and just not give up or quit. That's probably, I would say, my superpower.
You share that with a lot of cyber professionals, and I think Susie kind of hit on that as well with her concentration. It's the tenaciousness of once you have a cyber challenge, you are going to figure it out, and everything else around you really it fades away into the background, right, Chris?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So Joshua, you're next.
Thanks, John. I think something that a couple of my teammates have mentioned is just kind of my optimistic approach to a lot of things. So, challenges that we face during the competition, there's a little bit of a roller coaster emotionally, right? There's a lot, you solve a challenge, your emotions go up and your things are looking great. But, you see some of the other teams start to rise on the leaderboard and, they're catching up or they're pulling ahead, and it's, a little bit daunting sometimes. So I think having that kind of more optimistic perspective and, taking stock of the bigger picture and really looking at what can help the team is a big aspect of that.
That's great. Yeah, it's kind of tough when you're watching the scoreboard and you maybe see where you're not exactly where you'd like to be at times, to maintain that focus and not get overwhelmed by, oh, well, I guess we can't do this. But it's really, you can just got to keep focused and, rely on some of Susie's organization and Chris's persistence and your optimism. I think we're getting a pretty good recipe here. So I'll go to you, Austin. What's your superpower?
I feel like my superpower is just like asking the right questions. When you're working on tough challenges, I think the most important part is if you can't figure it out, ask someone for help. And I'm really good. I feel like I'm really good at being that person where I can just like, sometimes people dig too deep into one specific part of a challenge and they like overmiss something simple that they're like messing up over and over for a long period of time. And I like just going through and going from the beginning and just asking like each question from the beginning to where they are now until I can find the error. And usually I find the error long before where they're currently looking. And I think that's really beneficial to have, like when you're solving a challenge, solving a challenge that's taking you a really long time.
I think that's a great superpower. Thanks, Austin. All right, Rajat, you were able to join us. So I've got the question we're on, and I also have a bonus go back question for you. So if you're ready, so this current question is, what's your superpower and how does it make you an awesome cyber competitor?
That's a good question.
So I'll buy you some time. Your teammates. So Susie said she's organization, concentration. Chris said persistence. Joshua said optimism. And Austin, once you give him a problem, he's going to figure it out way before anybody else. So how about for your superpower?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say my superpower is like taking my time, going slowly, because like I think I'm pretty good at what I'm trying to say, like taking my time to look at like all of the aspects of a challenge, and like sometimes that means I don't get stuff like the easier challenges as fast as most other people, but I also like tend to miss less stuff with some of the more advanced challenges. So I think that's a pretty useful thing.
That's great. All right, so I'm gonna give you your bonus question. Everybody else kind of chimed in with this. So what was the one thing you learned from the competition, from the other teams you were competing against? What's the one lesson learned you had from the other teams?
I think a big one is like preparation and teamwork is really important, especially from like Team Europe. Who like, I talked to someone from there and he was like really surprised that none of us had ever met each other before the competition, because they had like actually done a ton of stuff together. They like met up for I think 4 weeks before the competition to get to know each other. So like, I think that was a pretty important takeaway.
It is, absolutely. So we'll go to the next question. So how do you think, and we'll start off with Rajat this time, since you're back in the game here. How do you think your participation in the US Cyber Games will help your career progression?
It's a good question. Honestly, I'm not really sure. I haven't really thought too much about my career, to be honest. I'm still in college, so I've just been pushing that down the road, sort of.
Okay. Well, maybe some of the new friends you made from Europe maybe can become colleagues in the future.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. So I'll go to Joshua next. What are your thoughts on how this might help your career progression down the road?
Yeah, thanks, John. So I guess there's a lot of different aspects to it that I think has been very helpful. Obviously, the team has been fantastic to work with. It's been great to meet people from all over the U.S. Who are just starting their careers, and the coaches who have been in the careers for a while. Just getting to meet them and seeing how they approach challenges, and obviously having those connections is going to be fantastic. And I hope I can maintain a good amount of them. That's been fantastic. Obviously, the skill growth has been great as well. Spending the last year working with the team, working with people who have a lot of skills that I don't, has been great in that area. Just being able to see how other people approach challenges, super beneficial. And of course, getting to meet a lot of people in the international community has really kind of expanded my viewpoints and the number of different perspectives that I have access to. So it's been fantastic.
That's great. All right, I will go to Austin next. So what are your thoughts, Austin, on your career progression based on this?
I'm certain that the cyber games has really helped my career progression in like a ton of different ways, because going into it, like the open, I knew I wanted to do offensive security, but I wasn't quite sure because there's a lot of things you can do in offensive security. And I was still looking into which part I wanted to do. But luckily with the team members, they taught me a lot of like exploit development, like writing kind of like hacks for different programs and stuff, and like how to do it. They taught me the basics and just kept working from there. And like just from having these people on the team, they mentored me through learning this whole field, like this whole different category of cybersecurity. And it's really helpful to meet them and be able to meet them hopefully in the future in the career as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's important to have those mentors, right, to really help understand what is possible and what are some of the steps you might want to take along your journey to get where you want to go to. All right, Chris, how about you? What are your thoughts?
So along with all the networking, just meeting like the industry leaders, whether they're coaches, players, or just anybody associated with the cyber games. So the connections there, that was super good. But during the combine, each week we went through like a different category, a different field of cybersecurity, and we practiced on that. And so it definitely opened my eyes to other categories that I sort of haven't looked into, whether that's like cryptography or forensics. So just learning other skills that will just be beneficial for my career in the future.
All right. And Susie, you want to close us out on this question?
Yeah, I mean, everyone said it, spot on, exactly what I was thinking. Number one, it's helped with skill progression, learning new skills, and developing your, skills you already had further. Certainly networking has been huge. I've heard it time and time again that in overall, the cybersecurity world is actually relatively small, and the chances that you're going to run into someone again in your future somewhere down the line are very high. So definitely the whole networking aspect as well. But one more thing that I wanted to add that has helped me with my career progression is just learning about the people who are outside of college and already where they're working, what they're doing, how they got there, how they got started, what their companies are. Because a lot of the time I heard, oh, my role is this. And it's like, wow, I've never heard of that before, but that sounds really interesting. Or, I work for XYZ company. And again, it's like, I never heard of this company, yet it's huge and international, and it has, thousands of employees. How interesting. So definitely participating, networking, and just learning about where everybody's from and what they do, I think will have a huge benefit on my career progression and kind of help me decide where I want to go next.
Right. That's excellent. So I'm gonna stay with you, Susie. We'll get off the current track, take a little different question track here. So do you have a favorite CTF or capture the flag category, and which one?
Yeah. So I like a lot of data. And so I tend to gravitate towards, if everyone who's played NCL, kind of like the log analysis questions. I don't know why. I really enjoyed those. Password cracking as well, because it involved a lot of data and manipulating passwords and different guesses and whatnot. And also sometimes the networking challenges, because again, it's all that data that you have to sort through and organize, of course, and kind of use in your favor to figure out the challenge. So I would say those are my top three.
Nice. All right, Rajat, what's your favorite CTF category?
I'd say probably like reverse engineering and binary exploitation, because I just really like reverse engineering mainly because it's kind of fun, like looking at a program, trying to figure out like what was the person who wrote this thinking? What are they trying to do? Like, what do these little tiny pieces of code add up to, sort of? So I think that's probably my favorite.
All right, thanks for that. Austin, how about you? What's your favorite?
I'm quite a fan of like the miscellaneous challenges. Sometimes those tend to scare people away because they really like one category and they know what that category is and what to expect from it. And miscellaneous is just like you have to learn something new every time usually, and I think that's like really unique about that category.
So when you go to restaurants, Austin, are you the person that orders the special every time?
Not very often. I stick pretty consistently in that context, but if I had to pick a second category, I think I'd go with binary exploitation because that's what I want to do for a career, and it just helps me learn as much as I can about it. Help me out.
Excellent. All right, Chris, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, binary exploitation is definitely my favorite as well. Just having a program that's meant to do one thing and then finding a way to make it do something completely different, whether that's getting you a shell or just being able to read arbitrary files. Like it's pretty satisfying to just take over and control a program like that. So big fan of binary exploitation, and reverse engineering goes along with it because you have to be able to find the bugs in the code first. So before you can exploit it.
Great. Thank you. Joshua.
I'd say forensics is one of my top categories. I really like being able to kind of look through different sets of data and pull out the things that are useful or interesting. And I also like web exploitation, web servers and the systems that support them. There's so many layers to them and so many systems working together to try to accomplish a goal that it's really fun to go in and see kind of where things break down and where the vulnerabilities lie.
All right. So I guess one thing, all the things you've talked about, kind of your skill progression building. So can you share some of the good resources you use to, for cyber competitions or just to grow your cyber skills? What are some of the labs, blogs, et cetera? What do you use to build your skills? And Josh, we'll stick with you to start off with this one.
Yeah, sure. So one of the first things that comes to mind for me, there's this website called Over the Wire. They have a bunch of things they call war games that basically you can go and challenge yourself and build your skills. They've existed for a long time at this point. I think they're fairly well known in the kind of cyber competition community, but I think that's one place that I remember getting started on back when I first started. And it's just a great way to build your skills. Everything that you do there teaches you something new about how Linux works or about how this works or about how that works. So that's been a fantastic resource. And I think also a member of Team Europe runs this site called Hack Tricks that has been, I think is also fairly well known in the cyber competition community. That's really useful for tons of different techniques as far as cyber competitions go. So those two are definitely the ones that come to mind.
Excellent. All right, Austin, what are your thoughts? What are some of the things you use to build your skills?
I'm gonna have to say people for like the number one, because of how much everyone on the team has been teaching me for the past year and a half now. So if I had to pick a second one, very generic, but like capture the flags really, just by doing challenges is a great way to learn what you're doing.
All right, Susie.
Yeah, I really agree with Austin on that one. Capture the flags in general, just the more competitions you do, the more challenges you see, the more you really learn. And so for those who are really first starting, I would highly recommend National Cyber League as a resource as your first competitions or your first few competitions, because the amount of growth you can have just by doing those competitions alone is really vast. I remember my first competition or my first NCL season, they do all these cool stats and stuff, and I had like maybe 20% completion, something like that. But by my final season, I was in the 90 percentile, and I was like, wow, you can just see every category, every, season has kind of grown. So yeah, I really just want to second what Austin said, is doing competitions and practicing challenges is definitely the best.
Thank you. Raja, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what other people said. Doing competitions is really great. And I think also an important part of doing competitions is you have to sort of, once you're done, and if you don't get it, especially, you have to look at the solutions, look at what other people did, look at write-ups. And even if you do get it, you might learn about like alternate approaches. Like sometimes you spend like 5 hours doing something manually, and I look at a write-up and I find out there's an automated tool that does this in like 5 minutes. And it's like, now I know for next time I can do this faster. Um, and I think like there's a lot of great channels on YouTube that do cybersecurity stuff. That's basically how I got into this to begin with. I think that's a pretty good way to learn.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris?
So for some resources on like binary exploitation, I definitely recommend old Pico CTF challenges. They just have a great introduction to certain topics. And then into the more advanced stuff like ROP Emporium is a good website that hosts the same challenge, just compiled in different architectures. So you can have practice on how you would do it, how you would exploit a program if it was, say, like an IoT device or an Android phone or something like that. So just those resources. And then I can't recommend enough this Udemy course by Max Camper called Heap Labs. Heap Labs is a great introduction on how to do some more advanced exploitation. So I definitely would have everyone check that out.
Excellent. So one of the things all of you discussed is kind of how the European team had definitely done a lot more team building and in-person meetings. So what was one of the things that you, looking back on the training that you went through in the preparation that you guys went through in season 1, what made the biggest impact on your training that you did as a team prior to the competition? So I'll start with Susie. What made the biggest impact on your training and preparation?
So I'll take the low-hanging fruit. Before the competition, we had the sponsors do demos of what the platform was going to look like, and so they were essentially, mini competitions that didn't really count for anything, but it was just to get familiar with the environment. And so our team had attended every demo, or at least a subset of the team would attend every demo. And I think that really, really helped us understand the environment, understand, what expectations to have, and allowed us to prepare a lot for the real-time competition.
Excellent. Rashad?
Yeah, so the question was like, what helped us prepare for the ICC?
Yeah,
right?
what made the biggest impact on your preparation? What's the one thing that really helped you?
So I definitely agree. The practice competitions made a really big impact because the last two, especially, where we basically just got to see the actual layout of the network that they used at the ICC. I think that helped a lot, especially because it was very unique and different from like most other attack defense competitions, where it's a lot of other competitions are more focused around like more like sysadmin sort of controlling what services are running and stopping people from like opening shells and taking down your box and stuff like that. And ICC was a lot more focused around like application security, like reverse engineering stuff, finding vulnerabilities in like specific self-contained apps. So I think it was really great that we got to have those demo environments to see that like this is a difference, and we got to prepare our strategies based around that.
Thank you. Joshua, same question.
Yeah, I guess the biggest impact on me was probably the regular meetings and training with the fellow competitors. We had a subset of people working on different things throughout the year, and I was fortunate enough to get grouped with a couple of other team members, and we met weekly and sometimes even multiple times a week to flesh out different strategies or playbooks or skills, and that was super helpful for me in preparation.
Okay, excellent. Chris?
Yeah, so during the combine, every week we had like a mini CTF focused on one category. And so those mini CTFs that we did on a weekly basis were just a great way to build skill. And so that was definitely extremely helpful.
Excellent. And Austin, you want to close us out on this?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to steal a bit of Chris's answer and Josh's answer. I think the
It's
mini,
good to go.
the
It's
mini,
good to go last, right, Austin?
yeah, the mini challenges that the coaches set up for us during the combine were really helpful because they were all stuff that I didn't really know, and other members on the team could teach me, and like I could build off that. So it's combining Josh's answer where he said the people and the meetings that we had were really helpful to help prepare everyone else by sharing knowledge, really.
All right, I think we have time for one more quick question. So I'm going to turn the tables on you, Austin, and start with you this time. So you're all excited. You're flying into Greece. You know, get ready for the competition. What's the one thing that totally caught you off guard when you got there?
What was the
What
one thing
weren't you?
that caught?
Yeah, what weren't you expecting when you got to Greece that you're like, oh my gosh, wasn't expecting this?
I guess the whole trip really. I never expected from the open that I'd be in Greece at all. It was a wild experience, and it was just really cool opportunity that I recommend to anyone who's willing to travel.
Joshua.
I'd say just kind of flying into the Athens area, just looking at how far the building sprawl goes. Obviously Athens has a certain boundary, but the buildings continue on. They're not a whole lot of tall buildings either. I think the building we were in was maybe 8-10 stories high. So not super tall buildings, but they went on forever and ever. It was really cool to see how just kind of Athens and the surrounding community kind of spread out and went all the way up to the base of the mountains surrounding the area.
Excellent. Rasha.
Yeah, I think it was really, as Josh said, it was kind of surprising to see like all the buildings are really short in the middle of the city. And I think also like the types of establishments that were there were a lot of really interesting places that you wouldn't see too much in a big city in the US, like some weird places across the street from our hotel, other stuff like that.
I'm sure there's a story behind the weird places across the street from your hotel, but we'll
Yeah,
see if Susie's waving me off. So we'll just keep going.
Yeah, I think probably like just the way it looks was kind of like it's visibly very different from like a city in the US. Like all the buildings are shorter is one thing. There's also like it was also something I wasn't expecting was that like English is everywhere. There's not really like any sign that's just in Greek. Every sign is in Greek and English. It's like more common to see a sign that's just in English than one that's just in Greek, which I thought was really interesting.
Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, what caught me off guard was just the number of homeless cats that were just everywhere throughout the entire city. In fact, there was just so much that we ended up having a dedicated channel in the entire competition Discord, just taking pictures of every cat that we saw, and it was cool. It was nice that they're just all around, just roaming.
I haven't been to Greece in 25 years, but that's absolutely one of the things I remember was being at the Parthenon, and there just being cats like every time you turned a corner.
Yeah.
All right, and Susie, you want to give us the last word on this biggest surprise going to Greece?
Biggest surprise for me was when I ordered a Greek salad and they don't put lettuce in the salad. There's no lettuce. And in fact, when I had my partner ask for his Greek salad, he was like, could I have some lettuce? The waiter or waitress was like, what? Why do you want lettuce in your Greek salad? It's just tomatoes, it's just cucumbers, olives, and feta, which it's all really good, but no lettuce in the Greek salad. No salad in the salad.
Right. Excellent. All right. Well, I think we probably got to about the beginning end of the time here. I don't know, Nora, if you want to jump back in and take us home.
I will. Just want to say thank you to everybody. Shout out Susie, Raja, Josh, Austin, Chris, and Mr. Jon Check. Big thank you to you. Big thank you to Raytheon as well. Thank you all for joining us.